So, can you tell me what are groups, like when we group things in math? Or any examples of things that we can find in groups? Like what come in groups?
Like, sometimes juice boxes come in groups. So.
Yep, I have 6 juice boxes. Good. So we know that when we have groups, it's a specific number, right? In that group, like 6 juice boxes. Good. So what we're gonna do here is we have, let's pretend, what do you want to pretend is the red? Either like a vegetable or a fruit. I was thinking maybe that the reds could be, I don't know, the whites, white fruits, apples, but then white fruit, I don't know what the white fruit is. Maybe potatoes, vegetables. Okay, so we have, there we go. We're gonna do, there we go. So, just make sure. Okay. So you said there were how many in total? Do you remember what?
24.
24. Good. Okay, so this is our whole. We're just going to be working with these 24 today, okay? And then how many whites? How many potatoes are there?
8.
8. Good. And so then how many, what did we say red was? Apples?
Yeah.
How many apples are there?
16.
Good, 16. Okay, so now using our apples and our potatoes, we're going to make groups of, do you know what equivalent means? What does that mean?
Equal.
Equal, good. So if we make equivalent groups, how could we make, so these ones, the apples have to stay with their apples, right? And the potatoes stay with the potatoes. So they don't mix. So if we were to make groups using our apples and our potatoes, yeah, equivalent groups, what kind of groups could you make?
8.
Good, so why don't you make them? You can use these. Go ahead and touch them and move them around, yeah. And then, is this the other one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have how many groups of 8?
3.
3 groups of 8. Okay, and then, so we know that how many groups in total?
3.
3. And then how many of those 3 are apples?
1 group of 8.
Are apples?
Oh, sorry, 2 groups of 8.
2, right. So 2, if you were to think of these as a fraction of our whole group, how would we name our apples?
2/3.
2/3. Good. And the potatoes?
1/3.
1/3. Good. Is there any other way that you could group these? Group these 16? You can play around with them. You can move them around. So what do we do with this guy? You have a lone apple. So do 5s work? No. What number could we do? Is there different? So the good thing about these is you can just play around. So if we have 3 groups of 5 and that doesn't work, what other number of groups could we figure out? I'm going to make sure that I'm still filming. Oh, okay. So what do you have?
4 groups of 4.
4 groups of 4. Great. And then what, can you do the same thing to the potato, the white group?
And then 2 groups of 4.
Good. All right. And then 2 groups of 4. So, all right. And then if we were to think of this as, again, fractions, right? Pieces of the whole. How many groups do we have now, including both the red and the white? 6. So how many out of the 6 are apples?
4/6.
Good. And how many out of the potatoes?
2/6.
Would those be considered equivalent fractions? If you have 4/6 and then the 2, well, no, then it'd be 2/6. So no. Okay, good. So now let's see, are there any more? I think there's maybe one more that we could do. Are there any more that how we could separate these same numbers into different groups? Maybe, so you started out with 8, right? And then you went down to, how many are in each group now?
4.
4. And then, can you think of another way that you could separate these groups? Would 3 work? No. 3 in each group. What else what would happen if we had 2 in each group? How many would we have? Would that work?
Yeah.
You can play it, you can move them around.
That would work.
What would be how would it be in the fractions of the whole?
It would be
8.
8.
Good. And then for the white, the potato?
You know, they're 12.
12. Good. And so what would be the potato fraction?
4/12.
4/12. And then what about, and then the apple fraction?
8/12.
8/12. So good. So if we think about, let's see, I don't want to bring any more up. Okay, so imagine, so we did the grouping. Do you know, have you learned in school about what it is, like if we had, do you ever set up your, do you ever work in what are called, how did we get, oh I see, oh, just add a 4. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I take one out? How did we get an extra one? Did I pull it out of the bag?
Well, it was already out and you.
And then I moved it in with the group. It's like, oh my god, crazy. Okay, have you worked with what are called like a rectangular arrays? Where you have it, so it's, if we were to think how many, so let me move this towards you so it's facing you. If we were to think that these were, I want to separate these. Okay. How many columns do you see right there?
4.
4.
No, 6 out of the white.
And now 6. So another way, So how many columns? How many columns are them are apples? If in fraction. 4,
4, 6.
4, 6, and then the potatoes.
2, 6.
2, 6. Great. So this is another way to work fractions with pieces. Do you ever work fractions in school with counters like this?
Yeah, not really.
No, it's kind of, you do it with maybe with other things like counting, right? But do you see how you could use these to show to make fractions out of something out of a whole, right? Do you want to experiment and see what you can find how to mix these up again to make another columns or rows? And remember what we do here, they have to do to the white. Okay, so what did you do here then?
I did 3.
3 columns, right, of 8. So if you were to say how many columns would are the potatoes?
1/8.
1/8 of, there are, it's the set of it, 1/3. Good. So right, because this is like the whole piece of like a pie, or is that how you do with fractions, or in box with shaded. Okay, and listen, that's it.